Commander Zethkar stood before the massive display screen in the heart of the Korthax Empire's war room. His dark purple skin gleamed under the cold blue lights as he studied the latest intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The Korthax had ruled over 47 star systems for 300 years, and every world they encountered had fallen within days of their arrival. Today, however, something new had caught his attention. "Another primitive world, Commander," said Lieutenant Vorthal, his junior officer. The young Korthax warrior pointed at a small blue dot on the galactic map. "They call it Earth. The species there has only just discovered faster-than-light travel." Zethkar moved closer to examine the data. His 4 eyes focused on the information streaming across the screen. The inhabitants of this world called themselves humans. They were small, soft creatures with only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their bones were weak, their skin had no natural armor, and they lived for less than 100 years. "How many ships do they have?" Zethkar asked. 15 total, Commander. 12 small destroyers and 3 medium cruisers. Their weapons are basic energy cannons and simple missiles. No shields worth mentioning." The commander's mandibles clicked together in what passed for laughter among his people. 15 ships. The Korthax had destroyed entire civilizations with fleets 10 times that size. Admiral Vexthil entered the war room, his massive frame filling the doorway. The admiral was old even by Korthax standards, having lived for over 400 years. His shell-like armor was covered in battle scars from dozens of conquests. "What do we know about their combat capabilities?" the admiral asked, his voice deep and rumbling. "Very limited, Admiral," Zethkar replied. "Our spy drones have observed their military exercises. They appear to be inefficient fighters. They show emotion during battle, which clouds their judgment. They also fight among themselves frequently, suggesting poor unit cohesion." Admiral Vexthil studied the human vessels on the screen. They looked fragile compared to Korthax warships. The human ships had thin hulls and exposed sections that would be easy targets. Their design seemed more focused on speed than protection. "Interesting," the admiral mused. "They seem to value the lives of individual soldiers highly. Our intercepts show they spend considerable resources rescuing single wounded warriors. Such weakness will make them easy to break." The intelligence data continued to flow across their screens. The humans had established small colonies on only 5 worlds beyond their home planet. Their expansion was slow and careful, unlike the rapid conquest methods the Korthax preferred. They seemed to focus on trade and exploration rather than domination. "Look at this," Lieutenant Vorthal pointed to a section of the report. "They actually negotiate with other species they encounter. They make agreements and treaties instead of simply taking what they want." The 3 Korthax officers shared what could only be described as amusement. In their experience, negotiation was what weak species did when they lacked the strength to take what they needed. Strong species took what they wanted and forced others to accept it. Admiral Vexthil made his decision quickly. "We will send a small force to deal with this Earth. 50 ships should be more than sufficient. This will serve as good training for our newer recruits." 50 ships, Admiral?" Zethkar seemed surprised. "That seems like more than necessary for such a primitive world." "Better to overwhelm them completely," the Admiral replied. "We want them to surrender quickly so we can move on to more important conquests. Fear is an excellent teacher." The Admiral turned to leave, then paused. "Prepare the standard ultimatum. Give them 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. When they refuse, we will demonstrate the price of defying the Korthax Empire." Meanwhile, billions of miles away, Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command center of Luna Base, humanity's primary military installation on the moon. The 35-year-old officer was reviewing patrol reports when the communication system activated with an urgent signal. Captain Morrison, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies, reported Sergeant Lisa Martin from the communications station. It's not from any human source, sir. Jake's blood went cold. First contact with an alien species had always been a possibility, but humanity had hoped it would be peaceful. Put it on the main screen, Sergeant. The image that appeared was both fascinating and terrifying. The alien being on screen was tall and covered in what looked like natural armor plating. Its 4 eyes glowed with an unsettling light, and its voice carried an undertone of absolute authority. Primitive inhabitants of the world called Earth, the alien began. I am Admiral Vex Thill of the Korthax Empire. Your species has attracted our attention. You have 72 hours to surrender your world and submit to our rule. Comply, and you will be permitted to serve the Empire as workers. Resist, and we will demonstrate why 47 worlds have. Learn to fear our name. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jake immediately activated the emergency communication system that connected him to General Lisa Carter at Earth Defense Command. Within minutes, her face appeared on his screen. The 50-year-old general looked grim as she absorbed the news. How many ships are we detecting, Jake? She asked. Our deep space sensors show approximately 50 vessels holding position at the edge of our solar system. General, they're large, probably 3 times the size of our cruisers. General Carter was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her mind working, calculating their options. The Earth Defense Force had been created only 10 years ago when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel. They had always known this moment might come, but they had hoped for more time to prepare. Begin immediate mobilization of all available ships, she ordered. Contact the colony worlds and warn them what's coming. If we fall, they need to be ready to run or fight. General, with respect, 15 ships against 50 doesn't seem like good odds. Lisa Carter smiled grimly. Maybe not, Jake, but these aliens made one big mistake. They gave us 72 hours to prepare. They're about to learn that humans don't go quietly into the night. 72 hours passed faster than anyone wanted. The Korthax fleet moved from the outer edge of the solar system toward Jupiter's orbit, their massive ships creating an impressive display of power. Admiral Vex Thill stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Fist, watching the small human fleet approach on his tactical screens. They actually came to meet us, Lieutenant Vorthal said with surprise. I expected them to hide behind their planet's defenses. Admiral Vex Thill studied the 15 human ships moving toward them. The vessels looked tiny compared to his fleet, like insects flying toward a storm. Foolish courage, he muttered. They will learn the price of defying us. Captain Jake Morrison sat in the command chair of the UES Defiance, humanity's lead destroyer. Around him, his crew worked at their stations with grim determination. Everyone knew the odds they faced, but nobody spoke of retreat. All ships report ready, Captain, announced Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her fighter pilot station. The 28-year-old pilot had volunteered to lead the first fighter squadron into battle. Her voice was steady, despite the fear everyone felt. Range to enemy fleet? Jake asked. 50,000 kilometers and closing, replied Ensign Bobby Clark from the sensor station. Sir, their ships are bigger than our intelligence estimated. Some of them are the size of our space stations. Jake activated the fleet communication system. All ships, this is Captain Morrison. You know what we're facing today. These aliens think we're weak because we're smaller than them. They think we'll break easily because we show emotion. They're about to learn they picked the wrong species to threaten. Captain Pete Williams aboard the cruiser Hughes Ranger responded first. Ready to show them what humans can do, Jake. The Korthax fleet arranged itself in a traditional battle formation, with the largest ships at the center and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. It was a formation they had used successfully for centuries. Admiral Vexthul prepared to demonstrate his power with a show of force. "Target the large moon orbiting the gas giant," he ordered. "Full power bombardment. Let these humans see what happens to those who resist us." The Korthax flagship charged its main weapons. Energy built up in the massive cannons until they glowed. With deadly light, the weapons fired, sending streams of destructive force toward one of Jupiter's smaller moons. The moon exploded in a brilliant flash of light and debris. Chunks of rock scattered in all directions, creating a field of destruction that would remain visible for years. "Impressive," Jake said quietly, watching the display on his screen. "But they just made their first mistake." "Sir?" Amy Brooks asked. "They think fear will make us surrender. They don't understand that humans get angry when someone threatens our home. Instead of the expected surrender signal, the Korthax received something they had never encountered before. Captain Pete Williams, without waiting for orders or coordinating with the fleet, launched his cruiser directly at the nearest alien destroyer. "Williams, what are you doing?" Jake shouted over the communication system. "These bastards just destroyed a moon to scare us," Pete replied, his voice filled with cold rage. "Time to show them we don't scare easily." The UES Ranger accelerated to maximum speed, its engines burning bright blue against the darkness of space. The Korthax destroyer, caught completely off guard by this suicidal attack, tried to bring its weapons to bear. But Pete's ship was moving too fast and too erratically. Admiral Vexthul watched in shock as the small human ship crashed directly into his destroyer's main hull. The impact created a massive explosion that tore both ships apart. The Korthax vessel, 10 times larger than the human cruiser, broke in half and began to drift powerlessly. "Impossible," Lieutenant Vorthal whispered. "They sacrificed an entire ship to destroy one of ours." The destruction of the Ranger seemed to trigger something in the other human ships. Instead of retreating or calling for surrender, they spread out and began attacking with tactics the Korthax had never seen before. Lieutenant Amy Brooks launched her fighter directly at a Korthax cruiser. But instead of targeting the weapons or engines, she aimed for the ship's communication array. Her small fighter couldn't destroy the massive alien vessel, but she could blind it. She fired all her missiles at the antenna clusters, then used her fighter's self-destruct system to take out the main sensor array. "Brooks, no!" Jake shouted, but it was too late. The young pilot's sacrifice had left the alien cruiser. Unable to coordinate with the rest of their fleet, the battle quickly became chaos. The humans refused to fight in formation or follow any predictable pattern. Ships would break off from engagement, circle around asteroid debris, and attack from unexpected angles. When cornered, human vessels would ram enemy ships rather than surrender. Commander Zeeth Kar, monitoring the battle from his command ship, felt something he had never experienced before in 300 years of conquest: uncertainty. "Admiral," he called to Vexthul, "these humans are not fighting like any species we've encountered. They seem to prefer death to defeat." Sergeant Rick Hayes, piloting the destroyer Use Thunder, demonstrated this point perfectly. His ship had taken heavy damage and was losing life support. Instead of surrendering or retreating, he aimed his crippled vessel at a Korthax battleship and activated the ship's reactor overload. The explosion lit up space like a small star. When the light faded, both the human destroyer and the alien battleship were gone. "Status report," Admiral Vexthul demanded, his voice showing strain for the first time. "We've lost 8 ships, Admiral. The humans have lost 4. But, sir, they're not fighting to win territory or capture our vessels. They're fighting to destroy us, even if it means destroying themselves." The Admiral stared at the tactical display. In less than an hour, These primitive humans had cost him more ships than he usually lost in an entire campaign. Their willingness to die rather than submit was something the Korthax had never encountered. Captain Jake Morrison, his ship heavily damaged, but still fighting, opened a communication channel to the alien fleet. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force," his voice carried clearly across space. "You wanted to show us the price of resistance. Now let us show you the price of threatening humanity's home." The remaining human ships, battered but unbroken, regrouped for another attack. The Korthax fleet, shaken by losses they had never expected, prepared to face an enemy that fought like no other species in the galaxy. Commander Zethkar spent 3 days studying the battle recordings. His 4 eyes moved across the data screens as he watched the human ships move in patterns that made no tactical sense. The humans had scattered their remaining 11 ships throughout the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, refusing to engage in direct combat. "This is not how wars are fought," Lieutenant Vorthal complained as he joined his commander in the analysis room. "They hide behind rocks like cowards, then attack when we're not expecting it." Zethkar paused the recording and pointed at the screen. "Watch this section again. The human captain named Morrison splits his forces into 3 groups. By our military doctrine, this should make them weaker. But look what happens next." The screen showed a Korthax patrol of 5 ships moving through the asteroid field. Suddenly, human ships attacked from 3 different directions at once. The aliens found themselves caught in crossfire, unable to coordinate their defense properly. "They sacrifice tactical strength for confusion," Zethkar observed. "We cannot predict their movements because they do not follow logical patterns." Admiral Vextel entered the room, his massive frame showing signs of stress. The proud warrior had never experienced a campaign that lasted more than a few days. Now, after a week of fighting, he was no closer to victory than when he started. "Status report, Commander. We have lost 18 ships total, Admiral. The humans have lost 6. But the concerning factor is not the numbers. It is their behavior." Zethkar activated another recording. This one showed a human mining ship that had been converted into a weapons platform. Colonel Steve Murphy commanded the vessel, using mining equipment to launch asteroids at Korthax ships like massive bullets. "This Colonel Murphy used to dig rocks from asteroids for peaceful purposes," Zethkar explained. "Now he uses the same equipment to throw those rocks at our ships. The humans adapt their tools for war faster than we can respond." The recording continued, showing Murphy's ship being cornered by 3 Korthax destroyers. Instead of surrendering, the human colonel activated his mining charges and blew up the entire asteroid his ship was attached to. The explosion destroyed 2 alien ships and damaged the 3rd. "He died to take our ships with him," Admiral Vextel said quietly. "Why do they choose death over surrender?" Before Zethkar could answer, an urgent communication came through the air. "Systems." It was from the interrogation center, where they held their only human prisoner. "Admiral, you need to see this." The voice of interrogator Kithmal crackled through the speaker. They hurried to the detention area, where Sergeant Rick Hayes had been held since his capture 3 days earlier. The human soldier sat in a chair, designed for Korthax prisoners, looking small but defiant. His uniform was torn, and he had several injuries, but his eyes still showed fierce determination. "What have you learned from him?" Admiral Vextel asked Interrogator Kithmal, a specialist in breaking the will of captured enemies, looked frustrated. "Nothing useful, Admiral. He provides false information about human ship positions. When we correct him with accurate data, he just smiles." "Smiles?" Zethkar found this behavior puzzling. "Watch." Kithmal activated the interrogation recording. On the screen, they saw Sergeant Hayes being questioned about human military capabilities. "Your ships are weak," the interrogator told Hayes. Your weapons are primitive. Why do you continue this hopeless fight? Hayes looked directly at the alien and grinned. Because you made one big mistake, Bugface. You threatened our home. Humans don't forgive that kind of thing. Your planet will fall. Your people will serve the Empire. Maybe, Hayes replied calmly. But every single one of you bastards is going to pay a price for it. And that price keeps going up every day you stay in our system. The recording continued, showing Hayes deliberately damaging the interrogation equipment while pretending to cooperate. He had also managed to plant false data in their computer systems before being caught. He sabotaged our systems while being questioned, Kithmal explained. We had to rebuild 3 data networks because of the viruses he introduced. Admiral Vexthul stared at the human prisoner. In 300 years of conquest, he had never encountered a species that remained defiant even after capture. Most enemies either begged for mercy or tried to bargain for better. TREATMENT Dr. Helen Roberts was meanwhile working in a hidden laboratory on one of the larger asteroids. The civilian scientist had become humanity's primary tactical advisor, using her research background to analyze alien technology. She studied pieces of wreckage from destroyed Korthax ships, looking for weaknesses. Captain Morrison, I think I found something. She transmitted to the human fleet commander. Jake's voice came back through the communication system. What do you have, Doctor? Their ships are heavily armored, but the armor is designed to stop. Energy weapons. Look at these scans. She transmitted her data to the remaining human ships. Their hulls can absorb laser fire and deflect particle beams. But they're not built to handle physical impacts. You mean ramming attacks? More than that. I've been working with the mining equipment Colonel Murphy's people left behind. We can modify asteroid mining charges to create kinetic weapons. Instead of energy beams, we throw rocks at them really, really fast. Jake was quiet for a moment as he considered this information. Doctor, can you make enough of these weapons to arm our remaining ships? Already working on it, Captain. But there's something else you need to know. I've been intercepting their communications. They're getting frustrated. Their admiral keeps asking his commander why we won't surrender. Because we're human, Jake replied simply. Back on the Korthax flagship, Commander Zethkar was having a disturbing realization. He had been studying human communication intercepts, trying to understand their motivation. What he discovered challenged everything the Korthax believed about warfare. Admiral, he called Vexthul to his station. I need to show you something. About these humans. What now, Commander? Listen to this conversation between their Captain Morrison and one of his officers. Zethkar played an intercepted transmission. The recording showed Jake Morrison talking to Lieutenant Danny Foster about the loss of the U.E.'s Ranger. Pete Williams had 2 kids back on Earth, Morrison was saying. He knew he'd never see them again when he made that attack run, but he did it anyway. Why, Captain? Why throw his life away? Because he understood something these aliens don't. We're not just fighting for our ships or our colonies. We're fighting for the right of his kids to grow up free. That's worth dying for. Commander Zethkar turned off the recording and looked at his admiral. They're not fighting for territory or resources, Admiral. They're fighting for concepts. We don't fully understand ideas like freedom and dignity. Admiral Vexthul was silent for a long time. Finally, he spoke. Send a message to Empire Command. Request immediate reinforcements. This is no longer a simple conquest. This is a war. Fleet Admiral Gorthake arrived at the edge of the solar system with 200 additional Korthax warships. The massive fleet created a wall of metal and firepower that stretched across space like a deadly constellation. The fleet admiral was ancient even by Korthax standards, having conquered more worlds than any other commander in the Empire's history. Admiral Vexthul, Gorthek's voice boomed across the communication system as his flagship approached the Dominion's fist. "Explain to me how a single primitive world has required the deployment of our entire sector fleet." Vexthal stood at attention in his command center, feeling shame for the first time in his military career. "Fleet Admiral, these humans fight. Unlike any species we have encountered, they refuse to follow tactical logic. They prefer death to surrender." "Impossible," Gorthek replied. "Every species breaks when faced with overwhelming force. You simply have not applied enough pressure." Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison floated in the command center of a hollowed-out asteroid that served as humanity's temporary headquarters. His remaining 9 ships were scattered throughout the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks and debris. The past 2 weeks had been the longest of his life. "Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the systems edge," reported Lieutenant Danny Foster from the sensor station they had salvaged from a destroyed ship. "It looks like they brought friends." Jake studied the readings on his makeshift command screen. 250 alien ships now filled his solar system. The odds had gone from impossible to utterly hopeless. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth," Sergeant Lisa Martin announced from her communication post. Admiral Frank Collins appeared on the screen, his weathered face showing determination despite the grim situation. Behind him, Jake could see the bridge of the UE's Vengeance, humanity's newest and most powerful ship. "Jake, we got your message about the reinforcements. I'm bringing everything we have. 12 ships from the colony worlds, plus 6 new vessels. That just rolled out of the shipyards. Frank, that's still only 27 ships total against 250. The math doesn't work in our favor." Admiral Collins smiled grimly. "Maybe not. But Engineer Mary Johnson has been busy. She's reverse-engineered their shield technology from the wreckage you sent back. And weapons specialist Tony Garcia has developed some new toys specifically designed to ruin an alien's day." Jake felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. "What kind of toys?" "The kind that turn their own size advantage against them. You'll see when we arrive. Hold position and keep them busy for another 6 hours." Fleet Admiral Gorthik was growing impatient with the slow pace of the hunt for human ships. His forces had been searching the asteroid belt for 3 days without finding more than empty hiding spots and booby traps. "These insects are wasting our time," he complained to Commander Seth Carr. "Begin bombardment of their home world. When their planet burns, they will come out to fight properly." "Fleet Admiral," Seth Carr said carefully, "I would advise caution. The humans have shown unusual resourcefulness. Perhaps we should—" "Silence," Gorthik roared. "I have conquered 47 worlds. I will not be lectured by primitives who hide behind rocks." But before the Fleet Admiral could give the order to attack Earth, the human reinforcements arrived. Admiral Collins and his 18 ships dropped out of faster than light, traveled directly in the middle of the Korthax formation, appearing where no enemy should have been able to approach undetected. "Now!" Collins shouted over the fleet communication system. The human ships opened fire with weapons the Korthax had never seen before. Instead of energy beams, they launched kinetic projectiles that moved at incredible speeds. The new missiles, designed by Tony Garcia, were specifically built to penetrate Korthax armor. The alien ships, designed to absorb energy weapon fire, were completely unprepared for physical impacts. 3 Korthax destroyers exploded in the first salvo as the human missiles punched through their hulls like bullets through paper. "Impossible!" Fleet Admiral Gorthek stared at his tactical display in shock. "How did they get past our sensors?" The answer came from Engineer Mary Johnson's greatest achievement. She had not only reverse-engineered Korthax shield technology, but had improved it. The human ships now carried stealth systems that made them nearly invisible to alien sensors. Captain Jake Morrison led his 9 remaining ships out of the asteroid. belt to join the battle. Dr. Helen Roberts had armed them with kinetic weapons that turned asteroids into massive bullets. The combined human fleet of 27 ships struck the Korthax, formation from multiple directions at once. Fleet Admiral Gorth Eck tried to organize his forces, but the humans refused to fight in any predictable pattern. Ships would appear from nowhere, launch devastating attacks, then disappear back into the asteroid field. Major Chris Taylor had volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission of the war. His team of 12 Marines waited in a modified cargo ship disguised as space debris. When the Dominion's fist moved within range, they launched their desperate boarding action. "Remember," Taylor told his team as they prepared to board the alien. "Flagship, we're not trying to capture this ship. We're here to cause as much damage as possible and make them pay for threatening our home." The Marines cut through the hull of the Korthax flagship using stolen alien cutting tools. They fought their way through corridors filled with surprised alien warriors, moving with the desperate fury of humans defending their families. Commander Zethkar met them in the ship's command center. The alien commander was twice as tall as Major Taylor and covered in natural armor that had protected him in hundreds of battles. But he had never faced a human Marine in close combat. Taylor moved with speed and unpredictability that the methodical Korthax could not match. When Zethkar's superior strength began to overwhelm him, Taylor used a technique no alien warrior expected. He grabbed a damaged power cable and electrocuted both himself and his enemy, accepting injury to inflict greater damage. The human Marine's willingness to hurt himself to win the fight left Commander Zethkar badly wounded and unable to continue fighting. Taylor's team captured the flagship's command center and began transmitting Korthax tactical data to the human fleet. Admiral Gorth Eck, watching his carefully planned battle turn into chaos, made a decision that would echo through Korthax military history. For the first time in the Empire's 300-year expansion, he ordered a full retreat. "All ships withdraw to the outer system," he commanded. "We will regroup and develop new tactics." Admiral Frank Collins watched the massive alien fleet pull back from the battle zone. The human ships had taken severe damage, but they had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced the mighty Korthax Empire to retreat not once, but twice. "Captain Morrison," Collins called over the communication system, "what's the status of your boarding team?" "Major Taylor reports the flagship is secure, Admiral. We've captured their command center and taken their commander prisoner." Collins looked at the tactical display showing the withdrawing alien fleet. "Jake, I think we just changed the balance of power in this galaxy." The Korthax fleet held position at the edge of the solar system for 3 days, engines running but making no move to advance or retreat further. Fleet Admiral Gorth Eck stared at the tactical displays in his command center, watching the small dots that represented the human ships moving among the asteroids like ghosts. "Fleet Admiral," his communication officer announced, "we are receiving multiple urgent transmissions from Empire Command. They are demanding an immediate report on the situation." Gorth Eck closed his 4 eyes and tried to find words that would explain the impossible. How could he tell the Empire's leadership that a species with only 27 ships had forced his fleet of 250 to withdraw? How could he explain that humans fought with a ferocity that made no tactical sense? "Send this message to Empire Command," he said finally. "The species known as humans possesses combat capabilities that do not match our initial assessment. Request permission to negotiate terms for their integration into the Empire rather than proceed with conquest." His officers exchanged shocked glances. In 300 years of expansion, the Korthax had never negotiated with any species. They conquered or they destroyed. There was no middle ground. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the medical bay of the captured Korthax flagship, looking down at Commander Zethkar. The alien commander was recovering from his injuries, his natural armor slowly healing the damage from his fight with Major Taylor. Despite being a prisoner, Zethkar maintained his dignity and watched the humans with curious eyes. "Your species continues to surprise me," Zethkar said as Jake approached his medical bed. "You could have killed me during the boarding action. Instead, you provide medical care for your enemy." Jake pulled up a chair and sat down beside the alien's bed. "We're not monsters, Commander. We fight when we have to, but we don't kill for pleasure. Yet you fight with such intensity that my warriors fear you. They call humans the Death Seekers because you willingly sacrifice your lives in combat." "We don't seek death," Jake replied. "We just value some things more than our own lives. Freedom, the safety of our families, the right to choose our own path among the stars." Zethkar was quiet for a moment processing this information. "These concepts you speak of, freedom, choice, they are not practical military objectives. Why do they motivate you to fight so desperately?" "Because without them, survival doesn't mean much. Your empire offers us life as slaves. We'd rather die as free beings." The alien commander's mandibles clicked together, and what Jake had learned was a sign of deep thought. "Perhaps this is why we could not predict your actions in battle. You do not fight for conquest or resources. You fight for ideas." Meanwhile, Admiral Frank Collins was dealing with the aftermath of the battle. The human fleet had been reduced to 8 functional ships, with the rest either destroyed or too damaged to continue fighting. The cost in human lives had been enormous, but they had achieved something that would be remembered throughout galactic history. Dr. Helen Roberts approached Collins on the bridge of the UE's Vengeance. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the captured Korthax communication systems. Their empire is in chaos over what happened here." "What kind of chaos, Doctor?" "Internal debates about how to respond. Some commanders want to bring their entire fleet to crush us. Others are arguing that we're too dangerous to fight, and there's a third group that wants to negotiate." Collins studied the intelligence reports on his screen. "What's your assessment, Doctor? Are they likely to come back with everything they have?" "I don't think so, Admiral. The cost of this campaign has been enormous for them. They've lost over 30 ships fighting a species they expected to defeat in a few hours. Their military leadership is questioning whether conquest is worth the price." Lieutenant Sandra White, who had been monitoring alien communications, suddenly turned from her station. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Korthax fleet." "It's on a diplomatic frequency." "Put it through," Collins ordered. The image of Fleet Admiral Gorth Ek appeared on the main screen. The ancient alien warrior looked tired and uncertain, emotions that Jake had never seen in a Korthax before. "Admiral Collins of the human fleet," Gorthek began, his voice lacking its earlier arrogance. "I am authorized by the Korthax Empire to negotiate terms for a cessation of hostilities." Collins exchanged glances with his officers. This was the moment they had hoped for, but never expected to see. "We're listening, Fleet Admiral," Collins replied. "The Empire recognizes that the cost of conquering your species would be ... excessive. We propose a treaty that would establish formal borders between human space and Empire territory. Your species would be granted autonomous status within your current systems." Captain Jake Morrison, watching from the captured flagship, activated his communication system. "Admiral Collins, I recommend we hear their full offer, but I want Commander Zethkar to be part of these negotiations. He understands our species better than any other Korthax." Over the next 6 hours, the most unlikely diplomatic meeting in galactic history took place. Humans and Korthax, species that had been trying to destroy each other just days before, worked together to find a path to peace. Commander Zethkar, despite his status as a prisoner, became the key to the negotiations. His growing understanding of human motivations helped bridge the gap between two completely different ways of thinking about warfare and survival. The humans will never accept subjugation, he explained to Fleet Admiral Gorthek during a private communication. Their entire species will fight to extinction before they submit to slavery, but they will negotiate as equals. The final treaty was simple but revolutionary. The Korthax Empire officially recognized human space as off-limits to conquest. In exchange, humanity agreed not to expand beyond their current territory for 50 years, giving both species time to establish proper diplomatic relations. As the Korthax fleet prepared to leave the solar system, Commander Zethkar was returned to his people. Before departing, he spoke one final time with Captain Morrison. "Your species has taught the Empire an important lesson," the alien commander said. "There are things worth fighting for beyond conquest and resources. Perhaps this is why humans succeeded where others failed." Jake watched the massive alien fleet disappear into faster-than-light travel, carrying with them the news that would reshape galactic politics. Humanity had not only survived first contact with a hostile alien empire, but had earned their respect through strength and determination. Admiral Collins stood on the observation deck of Luna Base, looking out at the repair crews working on the damaged human ships. Lieutenant Sandra White joined him, carrying a decoded transmission from deep space. "Admiral, this just came in from our long-range sensors. It's a communication from another species, the Zelani Commonwealth. They're requesting diplomatic contact." Collins smiled as he read the message. Word was already spreading through the galaxy about the humans who had made the mighty Korthax Empire retreat. Other species wanted to know more about these newcomers, who fought like demons but negotiated like civilized beings. "Send a reply, Lieutenant. Tell them we'd be happy to meet with them. But make it clear that humanity comes to the galactic community as equals, not as subjects." The war that had started with an ultimatum for surrender had ended with humanity, taking its place among the stars as a force to be respected and feared. The Korthax had learned too late that threatening humans came with a price they were not prepared to pay.